You think traffic is bad now on the Van Wyck? In 1964, over 51 million people from all around the world converged on this very spot in Flushing Meadows-Corona Park to see the future.
Let us explore together the future. A future not of dreams, but of reality.
If you came to the World's Fair in '64, you would have seen something called a picture phone. The problem was Bell Atlantic, who made the phone, they couldn't find a way to make it profitable. So it just kind of went away until the internet came along, and then now we have Skype.
Joseph Tirella is author of Tomorrowland, the 1964-65 World's Fair and the Transformation of America.
The World's Fair was really, it was a time when, kind of like the Olympics, the world would descend on one place. But instead of just sports, it was entertainment, it was cultural, it was technological. It was an opportunity for countries of the world to show the best of what they have to offer, whatever that is. We're at the Queen's Museum, which was a building originally built for the 1939-1940 World's Fair. This picture here is the symbols of those fair, the perisphere and the trilon. Walt Disney was a huge component of the '64 fair. Here we have a picture of It's a Small World, which made its debut here. And you went inside and there were children of the world, little audio animatronic children of the world singing It's a Small World.
It was also the real world after all. In November 1963, President Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas. The Beatles arrived for their first American tour in February 1964. Their cheerful tunes helped lift America's spirits.
Set in 646 acres, the billion-dollar show opens its doors to an expected 70 million people.
The World's Fair's opening day was exactly 5 months to the day after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. The Beatles arrived on February 7th at JFK Airport here in Queens, which had just been renamed John F. Kennedy Airport. Previously was Idlewild.
What are some of the things that didn't come true that the World's Fair said would?
One thing that did not come true, which I'm very glad about, was this giant technological behemoth.
A jungle road is built in one continuous operation. First, a searing ray of light, the laser beam, cuts through the trees.
Chew the forest through and spit out very clean asphalt. So this was a massive technological behemoth that would create roads and highways. Something else that did not come true was this idea that we would have underwater hotels and that the oceans would be tourist destinations.
A weekend, if you wish, at Hotel Atlantis, in the kingdom of the sea. A holiday of thrills and of adventure.
What's more, they also talked about building housing, public housing and homes built underwater so people would live under the ocean, which in 1964 no one thought about the ecological implications of such a thing. For one, if the oceans are polluted now, imagine how much more polluted they would have been if a million people were living in them. At the same time, who says that human beings need sharks for neighbors, or for that matter, sharks need human beings for neighbors?
The World's Fair and the 60s are long gone. But the future is bright for Flushing Meadows-Corona Park. Dorothy Lewandowski is Queens Parks Commissioner.
We just received an allocation of close to $6 million, which will allow us to do the first phase of stabilization of the New York State Pavilion. So we're very excited about that. We have a number of cultural institutions in here as well that are remnants from the '64 World's Fair. The Queens Museum is in the park. The Hall of Science, which was part of the '64 World's Fair, has an amazing exhibit.
In fact, I once learned about optical illusions in the Hall of Science in the very peculiar Ames room. I'm feeling taller already. Wow!
And the Queen's Theater is still vibrant, has performances, cultural performances, adaptive plays, you name it. Throughout the year, there's something happening here. There's more to do in this park than just remember the World's Fair.
What's the legacy of the World's Fair in 1964?
The real lasting legacy of the 1964 World's Fair is the fact that if you walked around these fairgrounds 50 years ago, you got a glimpse of what America would actually look like in 2014, not because of technology, not because of the color TVs or anything like that, but because of the people. In 1964, the world came to Queens. Queens is now the most ethnically diverse county in the world, and we as a country are a multicultural nation that no one could have predicted or thought so in 1964. That was the future of America, only no one realized it.
There is new beauty and new strength in the city of tomorrow as it improves the well-being of mankind.
In 1964, the World's Fair theme was Peace Through Understanding, which was a noble goal, but really had little to do with what was going on in New York City or America at the time. There was no peace and very little understanding, in fact. The civil rights movement was going on, and in fact, the World's Fair became a target for civil rights activists here in New York, because just everyone thinks the civil rights the movement happened in the South, but it happened here in New York City, where people were advocating for years to get jobs. I mean, after all, a World's Fair is a great public works. It's a stimulus package. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of construction jobs, and African Americans and other minorities were kept out of it. So on the opening day of the World's Fair, there were massive protests. There was something that was going to be a stall-in, which was a breakaway group from CORE, the Congress of Racial Equality, wanted to make a kind of dramatic political gesture where they would, hundreds of people were going to get into cars and stall, so thus no one would get to the World's Fair. It didn't happen that way, but they got their point across. James L. Farmer, Jr., who was the executive director of CORE, he was against the stall-in, but he thought to get control back of his group, which was a national organization. He met with presidents, he met with Kennedy, he met with Johnson. He decided to have a traditional, if you will, civil rights protest inside the World's Fair, where he stood in front of certain buildings and was arrested and was actually carried off.